Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette, and I know you know that, but I like to say that anyway, and just so I can hear my own voice, say my name and name me as the guy who's fortunate enough and blessed enough to be sitting in this chair today, folks. Couldn't be doing this without you. When we went to 5 days a week, you folks just stepped up like crazy. When I pushed the envelope a few weeks ago and started coming out 7 days a week, I cannot believe the way you guys showed up. I am incredibly impressed and grateful for what you've done. The subscriptions, the likes, the shares, and especially the DMs. We had over 200 DMs just last week from you folks. It's really been incredible. And remember, I respond to every one of those personally. So if I missed you, I'll get to you. Just give me a second. All right. It takes me a minute, but I'm a little long in the tooth. Sometimes it takes me a second. But folks, I'm grateful. And if you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Now, since you guys all know what's coming next, if you're a friend of the program, you know we got to pay a couple of bills. So let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Man, super hot. Fantastic. Oh, you guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Check them out. Look them up. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Folks, it's absolutely fantastic cup of coffee. It's a mean cup of Joe. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is huge here at Power Man. You folks all know that. To all of you out there that are veterans, thank you for your service. We love you, and I'm glad that you have found us because this is your home. Folks at Freedom Hill Coffee, they support veterans as well. That's one of the biggest reasons why we support them. Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. Tell them Power of Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this guy across the table from me. All right. Oh, here we go. Let's rock and roll. This is going to be an awesome interview. I cannot wait to hear about what this gentleman has to say. Please welcome the founder and host of the podcast, Derate The Hate, and also the director of media and operations. I think I got that right. Over at Braver Angels, which, if you haven't heard about, is an organization you need to hear about today, because I'm pretty sure the media doesn't want you to know. So this is going to be a great conversation. Please welcome to the show, Wilk Wilkinson. Wilk, how you doing, man?
I am fantastic, man. If I'd be any better, I'd have to be twins.
I say that all the time. You got to be kidding me. Really? I love
No,
that.
no, I am as you and I already said, man. If I mean better than we deserve, man. Better than we deserve.
Right on.
Life is beautiful.
Right on. I love your attitude, man. I have since moment one. So we have a lot to talk about. I really want to get into your podcast and, of course, your organization here that you're a part of. But Will, tell everybody. You've got a pretty cool story. From what I've read and from what I've heard. Who is Wilk Wilkinson? What are you about? What brings you here today, brother?
Rory, it's man, it goes back a long ways, but uh so I started the Derate the Hate podcast like 5 years ago because for a lot of years prior to that, I just had a lot of anger, a lot of animosity, a lot of things that I had to work through from growing up. And I grew up in the Midwest, late 70s, early 80s. Very, kind of poor, wrong side of the tracks. Didn't matter what side of the tracks I was on, it was the wrong one. And just had a long history of anger, animosity, and I had to work through those things. And in working through those things, made a lot of mistakes and learned from each of them. And in doing so, I finally decided that I had a story, I had a voice, and I needed to use that to help other people because I know I wasn't the only one in that boat. And so years of anger and animosity turned into a passion project for me, and started the D-Rate 8 podcast to primarily work on mindset and help people work on their mindsets through individual personal accountability, gratitude practicing, those kind of things, and then that translated into working with an organization called Braver Angels that is America's largest cross-partisan grassroots organization, helping to bridge partisan divides, seek civic renewal, and it's just been absolutely incredible. A dream come true for me to help other people and help my country. You talked about veterans. I'm a veteran, and you know, working back and giving back to the country. This is my way to keep doing it now that I'm, you know, old, beat up, and fat. It's it's definitely a way for me to give back to my country, Rory. So I'm grateful every day for what I'm doing, and life is beautiful.
That's absolutely fantastic. I want to hear about both, of course, the podcast and the movement. Let me maybe start with the Braver Angels. You work for them, and you're is it director of media systems and operations?
Yeah, Director of Media Systems and Operations. So.
Right. So, what do you do for Braver Angels with that title, and how does that encompass?
So that actually just started here recently. So for several years, I've actually just been a volunteer with them, one of the more front-facing figures. I was their 2023 national or co-chair for their national convention. I've talked about their organization on my podcast several times, and I've just done a lot of volunteer work with them over the years, Rory, and more recently, we as an organization have decided that to up the media game and do a few things. So there's kind of this influx, you know, transition going on with Braver Angels as far as their media game and their front. So what that is going to be eventually is just more visibility, whether it be in terms of bringing together mission aligned podcasts, mission aligned content creators, doing more videos and things on social media and things. So that's all kind of in transition right now and kind of being built out. But that's one of the reasons that they brought me on as somebody who's been a content creator in this depolarization space, somebody who's very passionate about the idea that you know, we cannot continue as a country, as a people to tear each other apart and expect to get anywhere positive. So what we have to do is we have to work towards bridging those divides, bringing people together for the conversation, not to find some milquetoast middle, but actually to bring people together to have a conversation, being able to discuss contentious topics in a non-contentious way and work through our issues together rather than just talk about each other and stay in our own silos.
I mean, I love the idea behind the mission. I have another podcast called The Podcaster Nation, and that's how we run that. Everyone is welcome, no matter what. Whatever your beliefs are, you can talk about them. And it's all about what you're doing on your podcast. And that's great in that very small little microcosm of the world. It works. But that's because we're united as podcasters, and
Right.
so we can get past some things. Um, with what Braver Angels is doing, and I think the name is probably spot on because it's an incredibly brave task to try and bridge the divide between, right and left, so to speak, right now. In my entire life, I've never seen us this polarized as a people, as a nation, ever. And I've never seen both sides just dug in on every little point, no matter what. How do you begin? You've been working with Braver Angels for a while. How do you start bringing people to the table when there's such a visceral, almost hatred of everything that the quote other side is doing?
Right. So that's a phenomenal question, and a lot of people uh, find themselves getting stuck before they get started, right? Because you're right, there is in many ways people get stuck in their own silos and don't even want to start. They don't want to come to the table. They're like, why would I waste my time having this conversation with this particular person? You know, it's called basically, you know, it's this effective polarization thing, right? We look at people on the other side of the issue, and instead of actually having a conversation with them, we imagine who they are in our mind and then allow that perception to keep us away from them.
Yeah.
And as my friend Monica Guzman often says, those who are underrepresented in our life will be overrepresented in our minds, in our imaginations. We make up things about that person, and those things, Rory, are not good. They are not good things.
Right.
So as we stay away from those people, our perception of them continues to get worse. So the real thing is to convince people that you may not believe that you have anything in common with this person at all. But let's just take a moment to, if nothing else, try to understand that there's a couple things in what's called, the braver angels way and how we look at people, right? And that's we all have our blind spots, but not one of us is not worth talking to. Just go in there understanding that this is another human being. If we start with a pro humanity stance and at least recognize that, we all probably, we need air to breathe. We need water to drink. We need food in our bellies. We want security and safety for our family. We, no matter who it is, you will at some point inevitably find something that you have in common with them. Start with those little threads and start weaving a bigger cloth. You
Hmm.
know, it's there is something there in all people that we can relate to. And if we start there, try to find common ground where it's available, and then start working on bigger things. Like, I mean, we can't just go in with no structure and pretend like if we throw a bunch of people who disagree at a table and see what happens, it's going to work out. We know that that does not end well quite often. Sometimes it does, but not often, right? So if we use the right structure and build upon the small things and then work into the bigger things, we often find that people learn that they have far more in common than they believed originally
Sure.
when they were stuck in their own silos.
So I understand bringing people together is, one of the goals. But I'm sure it goes deeper than that and further than that. What's the long-term purpose of trying to bring people together just to have a conversation right now?
Well, I think civility, civic renewal, understanding that if we continue to stay in our own silos, we are not going to get anything done, any meaningful, tangible things done in terms of in terms of things for our communities, things for our state, things for our country. Um, so if we continue on this path of whoever's in power gets their way and whoever's not in power gets hosed every single time, we're just going to continue on these ebbs and flows of happiness and misery, right? And it really can't be that way, Rory. If we want to sustain what I believe is the greatest country on the planet, we cannot continue to have, oh, well, my guy's in right now, and for the next 4 years, I'm going to be happy. And then when your guy or gal comes in 4 years from now, you guys are going to be happy, and we're all going to be miserable. Why would we want to continue living that way as a country? Why would we want to continue to allow things outside of our control, things happening in Washington? First of all, not everything that happens in our lives needs to be political, and not everything that happens in our lives needs to have some something in Washington that's involved with it, right? We got to get past that idea that everything, you know, I'll go back to something that I came up with a little while ago after reading Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance, right?
Right.
And and it's kind of a paraphrase on something that was said in that book, but if you think that government is either the cause of, and when I say government, I mean the federal government, is the cause of or the answer to all of your problems, there's probably a problem there, right? And we can't continue on as individuals, and our other countrymen cannot continue going on believing that everything has to have an answer in Washington because it's really not the case. We need to start working again with our neighbors, with people within our communities to look for tangible results to the problems, you know, community-led solutions or citizen-led solutions within our communities to the problems that we can handle within our communities. It's called, I mean, there's a concept called subsidiarity where we deal with problems at the lowest level possible, right? If we can deal with it as an individual, let's deal with it as an individual. If it's something within our community and we can deal with it at our community level rather than taking it to the state, let's do that, you know. Um, but far too often nowadays, everything has to have a solution that comes out of Washington. And, you know, I think we got rid of the, concept of a king and an all power on high at some faraway place a long time ago. And I think it's back. I think it's vitally important that we as citizens start talking to our neighbors once again. You know, not allow whoever's in office to stand in between, uh, you know, us and our in-laws or us and our brother who voted for the other guy. You know, we cannot continue to do that. So when you ask about a long-term, what's the long-term goal, Rory? Long-term goal is civility, civil
Yeah,
discourse. Let's have that ability again to sit down and break bread with our neighbor without making everything into a political argument.
sure.
That's that's what it is for me.
I love that, and I'm totally in favor of that. I think that especially someone who's my age, I remember back when you actually looked at who was running and what they had to say, and then you decided who you were going to vote for. And nowadays, I don't think people even know who's running for anything. It's just you're either on that side or that side, and I don't even care. I'm just voting on one side or the other. Um, and then, one of the things that I bring into this conversation, I guess, right here is that whenever someone from either side tries to break on even one issue, a Democrat, for instance, on one side who votes against men and women's sports, or the Republican who breaks against the rest of the Senate and votes against the big whatever bill, right?
Right.
Those people on both sides are completely ostracized by their own parties. I mean, they're eaten by their own, so to speak.
Yep. Yep.
So when we're out here and we're non-politicians, right? There's a very large degree of if I'm the first one to give, am I going to get eaten alive? Type of thing. And can I trust that the person across the table from me is also going to give? Or are they going to just take the victory and run? And now what have I done? How do you
Mhm.
rebuild the trust to be able to sit down and have a conversation like that? I mean, are there actionable steps that this organization is working through or, some sort of a plan for that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it really does come down to the mindset behind the idea of having the courage to stand up for what's right, having the courage to stand up for what you believe. You know, unfortunately, Rory, I came up with a phrase a while back and said those who represent us are far too often not the best of us. And I hate to say that because, I think there are some very, very good people in politics. And I think there are some people that have gotten into it for the right reason. But again, like you said, if you stand up for what you believe, often you get eaten by your own,
Hmm.
right? And we see that far too often in politics. You know, people stand up and say, I don't like the one big beautiful bill. I don't like what's in it. You know, for those who did read it, they don't, if they don't like it and then they stand up against it, they're going to get primaried, they're going to get booted out of Washington and whatever. So, I mean, there is, politics is an ugly game. Politics is one of the ugliest things, and as an organization, the biggest thing that I can say about Braver Angels is it is out there working with individuals on the idea that we will not get anything done if we aren't having the conversation. You know,
Yeah.
we you know, we've got to get we the people involved again in making the decisions and finding the right people that have the courage to stand up to do what's right, even when it's not popular. You know, there's that old phrase, Rory, that says or if it's never right to do the wrong thing, even if everybody else is doing it, and it's always right to do the right thing, even if nobody's doing it. I I, I think I
Right.
hosed that phrase up, but though that's the way that it came through in my mind this morning.
Sure.
But the important thing is we have to find people that have courage and have the courage to stand up to do the right thing when it's right, even when it's not the popular thing to do. And I think the only way we get there, Rory, is for we the people to get our heads together and say, we're going to become civically involved. One of the founders of Braver Angels, Dr. Bill Doherty, recently joined me for an episode of the Derate The Hate podcast, and we talked about thick and thin citizenship and what it means to really be a citizen, like an actively engaged citizen of this country, and the importance of being educated and doing more than just voting, right? Going back to the point that you made, Rory, where you said, you know, it's if they're not this group, we can think of it as a sports team, right? If they don't have this jersey, I'm not voting for them.
Right.
And if they do have that jersey, I'm going to vote for them, whether we don't spend the time anymore, unfortunately, to find out if that's a good person, if they are going to have the courage to stand up, speak up, and course correct when course correction is needed. So
Right.
we as a country, we the people, need to become more involved again, civic engagement, and have the conversation with our neighbor, find the right people, work with our leaders that are appointed or elected to serve us and make sure they're doing the will of the people, not the will of their team just because that they've all got the same jersey on. They've got to work for all we the people, not just whatever side they happen to be on. So I think it really starts with us as individuals and getting to the right spot. Takes becoming civically engaged, become a more engaged citizen. That's where the responsibility lies, is with each of us as an individual. Get involved and learn what your neighbor's thinking. Have civil conversations.
Nice. Nice. When you and I first started talking about this, I mentioned I hadn't actually heard of Braver Angels prior to, talking to you. And I, clearly there's a reason why I haven't heard that, because I can't imagine that the media of any kind anywhere would want this organization to succeed, because they make all of their money and get all of their viewership on us hating each other and on, going to our separate echo chambers. You are the director of media systems and operations, man. I mean, how in your job, brother, how do you start attacking that?
So that does present quite the paradox, right? I mean, it's definitely uh, a hard thing when there's so many out there within our media, and it's not all of them. Let's face it. There are some good ones out there that really do want to see us succeed. But then there's a lot out there that work on that fog model, that fear, outrage, and grievance. What
Mm,
they're doing is they're using they're trying to keep people scared, mad, and aggrieved for whatever reason, right? I mean, I try not to ascribe motives to what people are doing, but let's face it, that fear, outrage, and grievance generates clicks and it sells soap. But we know that model is tried and true, and it's been used for years. And unfortunately, if we don't uh, try to turn that around, Rory, we just continue to become more divided. So that is it's a challenge. It's one of the greatest challenges that we face. I've had the opportunity to be on with some very good people that have allowed me to come on and talk about the Braver Angels organization, and the Derate The Hate podcast. But then turn around and keep doing the same thing that they always do. And you know what? All I can say is that we just got to keep trying. I mean, it's a battle that it's not going to be won overnight, and we just have to continue to take those opportunities that we get to to show people that there's a better way to engage. There's a better way to address our problems, and the idea that we're ever going to get better by staying separated and staying mad and scared of the other side is just not reality.
Right.
So, as we work through these things, me as the director of me, continue to work uh, in an environment where that fear, outrage, and grievance model is uh is is king. It's what works the best. But in terms of clicks and things like that. But again, we have to, in my mind, continue to fight that fight because it's the good fight. It's the fight where, if we don't do this, who's going to? If we don't try to show people that we're better together than stuck in our own silos. Our national ambassador at Braver Angels, named John Wood Jr., just an incredible guy. And one of the things that he has said, and him and I have said in a number of different conversations, is this polarization, toxic polarization, is the one problem that ensures all other problems will not be solved. Right? So
Yeah.
if you think about that, who are we going to follow in this country? Who are we going to continue to follow? Are we going to continue to follow those whose material and content is meant to keep us scared, mad, and aggrieved? Or are we going to wake up at some point and say, we need to start following those who are trying to bring us together, show us how to have non-contentious conversations about contentious issues? You know, are we going to follow who are making their living off keeping us separated?
I lost you for just a minute. Do I have you back?
Yeah, yeah. You're coming through kind of choppy. I don't know if there's
Okay.
something going on with your internet or.
Okay, well, I got you back, it looks like so, and I appreciate that. The last thing that I heard you say was, who are we going to continue to follow? And so you were talking about, are we going to keep following folks that keep us separated, or, and then I wasn't sure where you were going with it after that. So if you want to pick up there, then I think we're good to go. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately the question is we have to decide who we're going to follow, right? It's are we going to follow those who keep us, scared, mad, and aggrieved, for their own personal gain, whatever that personal gain is. Everybody has the reasons for doing. I hate to ascribe motives to people for whatever they're doing, but are we going to continue as we the people to follow those who are.
Sorry about that, folks. A little technical difficulty. You guys all know that I don't edit, so it's just one of those things. We're going to get through it, and we're going to power through and make sure we keep having this awesome conversation. Looks like we have Wilk back with us now. Wilk, as you've been talking about these things, it occurs to me that this just seems like it needs to be a grassroots movement of some kind. And is that the direction you might be looking? And is podcasting going to be a big part of that?
Yeah, so Braver Angels, it has is America's largest cross-partisan grassroots movement working towards civic renewal and bridging these partisan divides, right? It's a primarily volunteer driven organization that drives this movement. The vast majority of the people in this organization are volunteers, and volunteers that are passionate about this work and doing this thing because they understand the importance of this. They understand the importance of meeting this moment that our country, you mentioned earlier in the conversation, Rory, how you don't remember a time when it's been so polarized. And there are many people out there that say that we are as polarized now as we've probably been since the Civil War.
Yeah.
And and there's an ugly reality to that. And yes, it absolutely takes the grassroots. This is not something that can be driven by a bunch of staff members. There are a few of us staff members, very few in the organization, but this is done primarily by volunteers with volunteers doing incredible work to bridge these divides. We've got alliances and chapters in all the states, and working within their states, working within their local alliances to have these conversations, working to bridge these divides. We have uh, different teams within the organization doing things. I mean, we got the Braver Angels, Braver Music, and bringing people together through song and musical expression to do great things. And then we've got Braver Politics and people focused on the political, working with our legislators in different states to do things. And then we've got the Citizen-led Commission on Immigration, which obviously immigration's a huge thing right now, Rory. We're working towards, again, a we the people driven model and understanding how people view this immigration thing and what real answers, what real meaningful change is needed and how we get there. And then we've got the citizen-led solutions, citizen-led solutions looking for common cause problems where people can work on things within their communities. So there's so much of this that is absolutely grassroots. Grassroots is key to this organization and, in my opinion, the success of our country. Because if we, the people, are not getting involved again and expect our politicians, if whether it be in our state capital or our nation's capital, to fix our problems, we've seen how that works out. It doesn't. It is
Right.
not the way to get things done. Grassroots is the way to make things happen.
Nice. I love it. I love the mission of the whole thing. Now your podcast, Derate the Hate. Um, that sounds like it's in concert with the Braver Angels, but there's also some pieces of the Derate the Hate that seem a little unique to the podcast. So, what brought you to start that, and what's the purpose of that, and how does it work with Braver Angels?
So, Derate the Hate was originally started because of my own toxic, my own toxic polarity, so to speak, right? And
Hmm.
and so I started talking initially way back in early 2020 about different life lessons that I'd learned through the mistakes that I've made, and how I kind of had to go on this personal journey to detoxify myself from a lot of that anger and animosity that I had. A lot of that anger and animosity played out in the way that the two ended up melding was a lot of that anger and animosity that I felt played out in a way that a lot of it does for a lot of people, and they start to get in these arguments with people they don't know about subjects that they probably don't know enough about online, and then now you've got two keyboard warriors battling it out over something that it serves no real purpose, right? So I talk a lot about mindset on the Derate the Hate podcast, how we as individuals, it's not a matter of what happens to us in life, but how we react to it as individuals. I've been inspired by books like The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, or A
Mm,
Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. Things that just we as individuals have an ultimate responsibility for our own ultimate freedom. And our own ultimate freedom, the best freedom that we have as individuals, Rory, is always going to be to pick or choose our reaction, choose how we are going to respond to those things that are outside of our control. And that translates very well into the political realm, right? Control what we can control and then react appropriately to the things that are outside of our control. So mindset is a huge thing for me. Gratitude. Are we practicing gratitude every day? Because gratitude is the genesis of happiness. If we want to be happy people, and I don't know, I mean, I suppose there are people out there that they're like, I'm bound and determined to stay pissed off and mad all the time, just angry. But
sure.
I personally did not like being angry all the time. I used to spend a lot of time angry. I used to break a lot of stuff, including my hands. I don't want to be that way anymore. I would just as soon be a happy guy, right? When you start to realize that we have the ability through the practices of gratitude to be a much happier person, hey, why not do it, right? There's only one person that can do it, and that's me. So, so I talk a lot about that. The mindset behind happiness, the concept of personal accountability, personal responsibility. Are we going to properly or choose the proper response to those things that are happening that may or may not be within our control? You know, I can use there's tons of examples, but one that I was in the transportation industry for 26 years, Rory, and I've coached a lot of drivers over my time. I spent 15 years as a driver, or 14 years as a driver, and 12 years as a manager, managing teams of drivers, and I've had the opportunity to coach hundreds of drivers through thousands of situations.
Mm,
And we see on the roads constantly people, cutting us off, and road rage kind of things, and how we react to those things, and people doing just ugly things in society, right? But if we don't take control of our own response, we are going to put ourselves in a much worse position. And then people just often lose sight of the fact that I can either make this situation better or I can make it worse. How am I going to respond? How am I going to choose my response in an appropriate way to come out better on the other side? And when people start to realize that their ultimate freedom is the ability to choose the right response, life gets so much better. We have this little thing called reticular activating system. It's a part of our human brain. It's like this little pencil stem thing on the back of our brain stem that makes things that are most familiar to us stand out more often. And if we choose to stick in our minds to those things that make us miserable, and those things that we're mad about, and those things, going back to that fear, outrage, and grievance, right? If we're
mm,
focused on those things that we're scared of or mad about, or focus on those things that keep us aggrieved, we are going to find more things that keep us mad, scared, and aggrieved. But if we start to focus on those things that we are grateful for, Rory, like again, going back to our basic human needs, right? Clean water to drink, a warm bed to sleep in, waking up next to your husband or wife, and how much we appreciate having somebody that loves us in our life, and just focusing on those things that we are grateful for instead of those things that keep us scared, mad, and aggrieved. It's amazing how quickly our life turns around, and how we find that we are blessed human beings with so much to be grateful for. And instead of being that person who walks into a field of flowers and sees the one weed, we become that person who walks into a field of weeds and sees that one flower. And as we do that, life becomes so much better. Our lives become happier, and happy people are better people. And it's just a matter of how we choose to show up. What are we going to do? Do we want to be happy people, or do we want to be mad and separated people? I know what I choose, and I know how to do it. It's not a hard formula.
I love that, having that intentional purpose in your life that you're talking about right now. That's very big, and it's a hard change for a lot of folks. For folks who are struggling with that, like you were, how do you start?
So, well, and that's the big thing, right? Is a lot of times the way that we start is becoming so fed up with being mad
Hmm.
and being, carrying around all that animus. And the big thing is it's this is not a thing that you can buy. This is not a thing that you can um just go out and get your ticket and jump on a new ride. This is this is really about saying today I am going to change how I respond. I am going to be a different person starting today. It's there's the starting point is just saying I'm going to start. I'm going to change today. I'm going to change the way that I show up. I'm going to change the way that I feel. And once you make that intentional decision to start looking at things a different way, it's an exponential thing. It will start to change. Your life will change when you decide you're going to change it. So the start is just to say, I don't want to be this way anymore. I
Hmm.
want to be a happier person. Because again, gratitude's the genesis of happiness. And if I choose to focus, one of the big things you'll hear a lot of people talk about gratitude journaling, which I think is amazing. I think is absolutely incredible, right? To sit down, wake up, or wake up in the morning, sit down, intentionally write down things that you're grateful for. That's a great first step. You know, it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for a lot of people, and there's a lot of power in that. But whether you're writing down what you're grateful for, or you're you know, just sitting down and saying, this is what I'm grateful for today. You know, I'm going to focus on what I'm grateful for versus focusing on that which I don't have or that which I wish I had or whatever, you know, and just start to live with that intentional purpose of I am going to be a happy person, and gratitude's a good first step in that. And then personal accountability, personal responsibility, being able to choose my response to those things that are outside of my control. Those two things right there, Rory, are such a huge step in making us a different person. And I tell you what, people just have to really decide, you know, what am I going to do today? Do I want to continue being mad, or do I want to make uh, my life better? Because when we make our lives better, we start to make everybody around us better. That circle of influence begins to change. Be the change that you want to see in the world. I think it was Gandhi or the Dalai Lama or one of them, say that. Be the change that you want to see in the world. Be the change that
Yeah.
you want to see. You sick of being angry? Quit being angry, and you're probably not going to be around angry people for very long. Your circle of influence changes. Be that person that greets everybody with a smile and a handshake, and calls them out by name, and like you and I when we started work, or talking to each other today. How are you doing? Better than I deserve, or just be that person. Be that person that opens the door for the person, or holds the door for the person coming behind you, or greets everybody with a smile. Smiles and bad moods are contagious, so choose wisely, right?
Right.
It's it- it's just a beautiful way of living, and if we all did it, can you imagine what the world would become?
It sounds so simple, when you say it like that, but the key sounds also like it's being intentional about it, being intentional about what you're doing and about doing the things you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to have bad days. Everybody's going to have bad days. But if we choose to be intentional about, you know, I think about so much of, you know, my past and when I was uh an angrier and more toxic person, right? And and the idea, or I think about people now, I'll walk past somebody and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they just keep on walking. They like barely acknowledge you, right? And
Hmm.
I for all of your listeners, I want them to think about that. Think about that. Think about how you feel. If you smile at somebody when you're walking by them and there's no acknowledgement, or you say hi or how are you or whatever, and there's no acknowledgement. Think about how that makes you feel. And think about if you decide to carry that through for the rest of your day. Or if you stand up and say, I've got the ability to choose my response, so I'm going to carry on with my hi, how you doing, big smile for everybody I pass kind of thing. Because I heard a story once, Rory, and I'll tell you this. There was I don't know if I'm trying to remember where I picked this story up, but it's definitely not mine, but it's a good one, right? So there was a gentleman that was walking on his way to uh to a particular bridge somewhere and going to take his own life. My journey to this bridge, I'm not going to jump. Unfortunately, that young man jumped because nobody smiled at him on his way to the bridge. And and I think about that, and I got goosebumps just thinking about that story. I've lost a number of friends to suicide, and it's just horrific.
Yeah.
But just think about if you can be that person today for that person that's walking to that bridge. Don't we have an obligation to do it? You know? And So I try to greet people with a smile and say hello and just all the while remembering, that young man that was heading to that bridge that day, or the idea that smiles and bad moods are contagious. So why not be the change that we want to see in the world? Do you want to live in a happier world? Smile. Be that catalyst for somebody else to smile.
Wow. That's a heck of a story, man. It's a great way to look at it. And it kind of puts the idea out there that we have a responsibility to do that, not just for ourselves, but for other folks. That's pretty big.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. No, I love the idea, brother. I love what Braver Angels is trying to do. I mean, I love I love the mission, and I mean, I really wish you a lot of luck with your position and what you're going to have to tackle, being the director of media systems and operations. Love what you're doing with the podcast, and love your mission there too. The As we kind of bring things together here, we've covered a lot of this, but we couldn't cover all of it if we tried. So um, I want to give you the floor, and I just want to say, is there anything that I didn't ask you about today? Is there anything that you want to make sure you get out there? Anything that you want to double down on that we talked about, or maybe a last nugget, parting thought, that type of thing for the listeners? The floor is yours for the last couple minutes here, brother.
I appreciate that, Rory, and I would just encourage all of us to keep in mind that what kind of world do we want to live in? What kind of people do we want to be? What kind of legacy do we want to leave for those that are coming behind us? Right? Do we want to leave a more peaceful and happy uh, country world uh, for those that are coming behind us? I do this for the idea that my children have a world that they're going to be in long after I'm gone, God willing, and and I want to know that I did everything that I could to make that world that they're going to live in a better place. So when I think of a better world, I think of a happier world. I think of happier people. I think of people getting along. And I don't mean in some big kumbaya kind of way, but I do mean as working together to get things done in a meaningful way and then living happier lives as individuals and the only way we're going to make that happen, Rory and all the Power of Man listeners that are out there, is to say, I have the ability to choose my response to those things that are outside of my control. I have the obligation to my fellow man to be happy and to smile when even if somebody else isn't smiling, give them yours, right? Be the change that we want to see in the world. I know this sounds all cliche, and it may be, but the fact of the matter is it's real. It works. And if you want to be the change, or if you want to see the world change, be the change that you want to see in the world. The best way that I can say to do that is to uh, listen to the Derate the Hate podcast. Check out Braver Angels, America's largest grassroots cross-partisan organization working towards bridging those partisan divides, civil discourse, civic renewal, and they can be found at braverangels.org. And then check out the Derate the Hate podcast. I mean, we as podcasters know that podcasting is where a lot of people get their best information today, and cross promotional things like this are wonderful. So check out deratethehate.com for more about the Derate the Hate podcast and braverangels.org to learn about the biggest and best grassroots movement out there working to save our country.
Love it. Great way to wrap it up for us, brother. That's fantastic. Folks, you heard them. Go check out Braver Angels, support them. It'd be great if we could all sit back down at the table and just have conversations, civilly. And definitely go check out the podcast. It's an excellent podcast. I've listened to it. The Derate the Hate podcast with Wilk Wilkinson. Wilk, thank you so much for coming on today, man. Sharing your message and getting it out there to everybody and giving everybody something to think about, about changing their perspective and leading through their own actions. I love it. It was great having you here, man.
Thank you, Rory. It's a real honor.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Folks, that's been another awesome episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason that we bring powerful men on here like this with powerful messages is because we are united in supporting you in regaining your power in your life to become a better provider, better protector, better leader tomorrow than you are today, to become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you have value, you matter, and you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.